Welcome to Toy Business Unboxed, your gateway to the secrets of the toy industry. Here, Jason Shea, a toy entrepreneur and expert in the field.
Every product we develop is really inspired by some of the real life experience that we have with our son.
60% of all toys last year were sold on Amazon, which is incredible.
Be passionate about it because it's a road, it's a journey.
Like when you have an idea that you think is like gonna somewhat like change the world, make things better, I'd say go for it.
We'll guide you through the enchanting world of toy design, marketing, and manufacturing. Now let the unboxing begin.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Toy Business Unboxed. I'm your host, Jason Shea. Today, I'm joined by Kyle, a dynamic leader with over 25 years of experience in product development, marketing, and e-commerce. Having worked with all the different top brands in the toy industry and beyond, Kyle has been first-hand and see how the e-commerce have shifted the landscape for seasoned toy product, from navigating the complexity of online marketplaces to finding strategy that actually extend the shelf life of the toys. Kyle, thank you so much for joining me on today's interview today.
Hi, Jason. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you as well. So I think you have a lot of different things that we can talk about within your own kind of experience within the toy industry. But can you first start out with sharing your with the audience how does your journey within the toy industry started for you?
Yeah, sure. So I started my career with Intex. Intex, for those who don't know, is the world's largest producer of above ground swimming pools, backyard, summer inflatable toys, and other inflatables such as air mattresses and things of that sort. I spent really my early years earning my stripes with the company, starting in marketing as an analyst and worked my way up, managing advertising, licensing, trade shows, eventually moving into product marketing and really focusing not only on the product but the strategy in terms of who we would distribute that product to, how we would do that, and what exactly that would look like. So it was really a great experience. I always kind of look at it as my boot camp into the toy industry and my career as a whole. So
yeah, and since you work, one thing I think we talk about in the pre-interview is Intex is really known for selling a lot of seasonal product because it's mostly around like summers, pool, inflatable. And one thing
absolutely.
I think you have a very unique experience with is like managing the seasonal product, which is actually a big challenge for a lot of the entrepreneurs. Can you also share a little bit about what you have learned over that experience on handling and managing like a seasonal product like the Intex, the one Intex made?
Yeah, of course. The biggest challenge always with seasonal products is forecasting. You have a very tight window to sell the product usually. Uh, I think that the landscape with the emergence of e-commerce, specifically Amazon, I think it has softened the curve in terms of the big peaks, the big valleys that in the past we would have experienced with traditional brick and mortar. I think that I don't want to say it's made it easy to sell seasonal, but it's made it perhaps easier.
I see. So what are the few things that you usually, for you, like how far advanced do you need to like approach for the forecasting, for example, for a seasonal product? Is that a year in advance, or how much in
Sure.
advance do you usually try to do that?
Yeah, for sure. With my experience in my past with not only in text but other toy companies that I worked with that specialize in the seasonal market, um, we would not only, I would say, look a forecast a year in advance, but really looking back, even in the case of Intex, we had decades that we could look back on and really see the patterns and understand, okay, when would consumers first want to buy certain products? So when did that demand start? And then when did we start to see that trail off? Um, And again, what was interesting in the brick in the days of brick and mortar being the primary retail outlet is you really had to be smart with
Mm,
um, with that forecasting, because obviously if you got towards the end of the season, they were unable to sell. They would come looking for markdown monies, looking for cooperation to help
mhm.
move them out of that inventory. Because as we all know, that retail shelf is prime real estate, and they have something else that they want to put there and sell more of. So, um, again, yeah, early days forecasting was extremely important. You had to be right. If you weren't right, it made it not a very attractive business, right? If you didn't get it right,
Mhm.
very hard to be profitable, because again, retailers would look for cooperation in the form usually of markdown allowance, markdown funding, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden, you find yourself in a non-profitable business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think you, based on your experience, you work in multiple different companies that have seasonal product, not just
Yes,
one, correct?
yes, very
And
much so.
yeah, can you also kind of explain about a few other companies you have worked for and how is their product line different compared to Intex?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So from Intex, I went to Pacific Cycle. At the time that I worked for Pacific Cycle, they were most famous for owning the brand of Schwinn bikes,
Hmm.
as well as Mongoose bikes. And at that point, they had just started to distribute those in Walmart, Target, a lot of the big box stores. And what's interesting about bikes is that's also a very seasonal category. People don't think of it that way,
Mm,
but
mm,
you have really two seasons for bikes, right? You have
yeah.
coming into spring and summer
Hmm.
is a spike, and then of course the holidays, specifically for Christmas, is another big spike.
Mm,
And so I was able to apply a lot of what I had learned with Intex in that role with Pacific Cycle. Um, and from there, I moved on and eventually got back into more like product Vintex,
mm,
working for the likes of
hmm,
Best Way USA, as well as Banzai.
hmm,
And those brands, again, very much fall in line with Intex.
hmm,
Again, very critical that you are forecasting correctly, um, at least again at that juncture. And so,
hmm.
uh, as you said, a lot of experience of that. Kind of always had those parameters in my career.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I think it's also almost opposite of other toy company I've interviewed in the past. Because usually for a typical toy company, summer is usually the slowest season. For
Yeah,
you, summer is like the peak season almost.
exactly,
So this is
exactly,
kind of different as far as managing expectation and managing supply chain as well. And
exactly.
my next question is, since you have worked with all kind of different brands from like big brand to like maybe a little bit smaller startup, as you within the toy industry itself, and I'm pretty sure you have seen the industry have really changes over the years of you being in the industry. How do you see as far as the rise of e-commerce, like the like of Amazon, really change? You kind of mentioned it earlier as well, but how does that change, and how does a business need to adapt because of the popularity of the e-commerce compared to the traditional brick and mortar?
Yeah, great question. I think business moves a lot faster today with the emergence of e-commerce, and specifically Amazon. I think that you don't have the same barriers to entry that again we had maybe 15, 20 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that with the right strategy and perhaps a little bit of luck,
Hmm.
there's that opportunity for a startup to create a brand and have it go viral,
Hmm.
almost overnight.
Hmm.
Again, 15, 20 years ago, that wasn't possible. You
Hmm.
were definitely more in a crawl, walk, run type of situation then. And so now there is that opportunity. I think the flip side of the coin is that for the big brands, the existing or well established brands, they have a lot more competition than in the
Mm.
past
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because those barriers to entry are removed. I also
Low.
think that there's a lot more prevalence of competing with yourself.
Mm.
And
Okay.
what I mean by that is, distribution really has to be looked at much more carefully than it did in the past. It
Yeah,
was the
yeah,
case
yeah.
before that, on a global perspective, if you were an international company, you really didn't have any hesitation selling one country to another. You had very little concern of that inventory making its way back into your market. Obviously now cross border is very prevalent, very easy, I would say, for different parties to be able to distribute in other areas. I think on top of that, the visibility of your pricing, right? Now, again, Amazon and others, not just Amazon, but with that price being online, it's very easy for others to see the price, compete with it, and because of price matching policies that different companies have, or pricing policies, I should say, what you find yourself in often is what some term as the race to zero, where there's this constant beating down of the price, lower, 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 making your retail customers perhaps less and less profitable. They're earning less and less margin. So you have to be really smart now with how you go to market, and and making sure that you have a strategy more than just, okay, anyone who wants to buy will sell it to you.
Yeah, and I think a common problem I see, since I consult with a lot of brand myself, is when you don't have a very strict regulation or control over the supply chain. Something like Amazon is, you could have like the same product could be sold in a big box retail store at Walmart, for example, but Walmart will also put your product at a huge clearance aisle when they have an excess supply, and sometimes people will
For
pick
sure.
it up and resell it on Amazon and competing against yourself. So
Yeah,
going back to
retail
your point,
arbitrage. Yeah.
yeah, retail
Mhm.
arbitrage, and people do that like quite often.
A
And
lot.
how do you control that? How do you create different barriers so people you don't really compete against yourself, because Walmart doesn't want to sell your product anymore. They want to offload everything at 90% off. Now
Right.
you're kind of lose on both ways. You lose the profit that you could make in Walmart, and now you have a more competition competing against yourself on Amazon too, by people trying to resell your product. So that's
Exactly.
definitely a very valid concern, and I see that pretty often, especially for some brand that kind of lost touch of their Amazon's channel, because, oh, I have my distributor handle in, but guess what, your distributor is not monitoring it.
No,
The
no.
distributor, sometimes they are carrying thousands of product, they couldn't monitor
Correct.
every single product they carry on the daily basis. Like, do they have 10, 20 resellers trying to sell the same product or not? So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
definitely a very valid concern, and I see that on Amazon all the time as well. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's hardest for, again, those big brands that have been established for a long time. They generally have the widest distribution, and so now how do you kind of rein that in and sell smarter versus harder. So
yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. For the brand that you work with, is everyone also on Amazon as well? What kind of problem have you seen on the Amazon marketplace with the brand that you manage in the past or currently? Yeah.
yeah, in terms of, is everyone on it? The answer to that is mostly yes,
Mhm.
and in many cases they may be on it without them
Knowing it,
knowing it,
that's not good
right?
neither. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And for the audience, those who may not quite understand it, is uh, how Amazon works with having you know the ability to sell directly to Amazon or through Amazon's platform. Uh, what I'm talking about are those third-party sellers who obtain product through some means, hopefully by legitimate means, buying from a distributor, or but in any case, have come across the product and now are selling your product on Amazon, not on your behalf, but on their behalf. And do
Mhm.
they always serve your brand and serve your policies? No, they don't, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That's the
so,
problem.
so the answer to your question is yes. I think you're hard pressed really to find a brand that is out there that isn't being sold on Amazon or at least some marketplace.
Hmm.
Um, I think that the big challenge again is for those brands themselves to make sure that they're managing their business. They know what's being sold. They know how it's being sold. They
Hmm.
are controlling the message. They're controlling the what that look and feel is online.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a really good point, especially when you have someone else selling your product, but they might not have the time and resources to represent your brand at the best light. And maybe they just took some random picture of the product in their garage and they just throw it out on
Exactly right.
Amazon.
Exactly right.
And
Yeah.
the problem it might create is when other consumers trying to look for your product in the store. Sometimes I do this as well. It's like, okay, let me check on Amazon, see how many reviews this
Right.
product have before I buy it at a retail store. And
Right.
now you have a very poor representation of your brand and your product because you didn't, spend the time and energy trying to manage the marketplace. But people can still see it regardless, and people doesn't know is that from you or from someone else. People don't know that. So that's
Exactly
definitely
right. Exactly right. And
definitely
actually, you're touching upon something that I failed to bring up before, and how e-commerce and Amazon has really changed the
Mhm.
business. And another big component is just what you were saying with the reviews and the ratings. There's a lot more direct feedback
Yeah.
um, that before required focus groups or surveys. Now that's readily available to you and your competitors, and I think that's
Yes.
another part too, right? Is that
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, even from a product development standpoint,
Mhm.
uh, even fairly large brands will sometimes get their ideas from
Mhm.
seeing their competitors' feedback on Amazon.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And that's actually a different tool that you can aggregate it and use the AI to say, like, summarize all the 10,000 review, and
You sure
you can
can.
kind of
Yeah,
get a summary of
yeah,
what is everyone saying, what everyone's, what people are complaining about, and you can go out just like you said, and make a better version of the same product using the feedback that you and the review that you can already see, and I think that those are all very valid point, and especially for like seasonal product for some of the brand you manage. Um, by the time you see the problem, maybe the if you don't react fast enough, the season might be already over. So because it's a very short season as well for the summer.
that's
So
very true. Now, I will say, another way that e-commerce and again specifically Amazon is changing that seasonal business is that more and more there is request for evergreen product,
mm,
meaning the continuation of the product life cycle.
hmm,
How Amazon and e-commerce really in general works is it's all about the data behind those products, right? What
hmm,
sells, and that's what drives demand.
yeah,
So they in Amazon, for example, they're not extremely excited about new products that you introduce
mm,
until those new products gain traction in the market.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Then they're very excited, and then they might come to you and request that those products be made exclusive to them, or other retailers may make that request. But I think it's very interesting in how um, that is something that it really we didn't have again in the past with brick and mortar, is this demand to continue products year in year out, even in the seasonal category.
Mhm. Yeah, and like you mentioned earlier, in Amazon, it's also very unique. Is there's a industry term called Amazon honeymoon period. I don't know, have you heard of this term? But pretty
Yes,
much the first 30 days is where Amazon their algorithm and their search
right.
engine will really give you a lot of more people call it ranking juice. So you get to rank a
Lift.
lot higher for the first 30 days than you could be in for other product. But in the first 30 days, really about how do you gain the maximum of attention, sales velocity, conversion, review, and then after 30 days, if you don't really prove yourself to the Amazon algorithm that your product is worthy to be ranked, then you start losing rank and people couldn't find you anymore. Just like on Google, usually the best place is like an inside joke. The best place to hire a dead body is on the second page of the search result. And same as Amazon, the best place to hire a dead product is to hide it on the second page of the search result because no one's going to see it ever. So
So
that's
true.
yeah, and that's I think especially for some people that is not familiar with the e-commerce landscape, especially the Amazon marketplace, they don't understand that, and sometimes I'll just throw something up there and see how it goes. But guess what? If you don't like fully optimize it before you turn it on, you're really hurting yourself for the best chance to be successful ever on the platform.
For sure.
And yeah, so that's also very, very unique because Amazon sees so much data, and then they almost give you instant feedback based on all the data they are seeing. So yeah.
Yeah, the flip side of that coin is, again, Amazon gives you this ability to take items that may be poor performers, and with the advertising tools available, now you would have to spend, you have to have some budget available to spend, but you have this unique opportunity to take some dogs and actually make them look a lot more attractive through advertising.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure,
and
because it's
and
like a
so
pay to play platform nowadays. You kind of have to
yeah,
run ads.
yeah,
So
and I think, again, for seasonal, that's really been huge because you have this opportunity really to put product in front of people that they may not be looking at that point in the season. For example,
that's true.
with an Intex or Best Way, the above ground pools is a large purchase. It's a big
Yeah.
ticket item, and people may want these products, but they're not thinking about those products until it gets hot. But what you
Yeah.
really want them to do, where there's more ability for them to make that purchase, is for them to start thinking about it in February, before it
Mhm.
gets hot. And
Mhm.
so the advertising enables you to do that, to get those products in front of them much much sooner than they ever would have been in the past.
I see. Yeah, I think that the e-commerce does allow for a longer selling season, and
Yeah, for sure.
like you just mentioned, that's one way to maybe leverage that, and maybe also, is there any other strategy that you have done in the past to try to reduce the risk of like excess inventory? Because as we know, Amazon does charge quite a bit for storage when you store there for more than 6 months. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think again, it's the various tools that are provided, the ability to promote anytime. Again, if you were looking in the past with brick and mortar, you had to plan co-op promotions well in advance. When you got to the season, sure, you could have come to an agreement to mark down and discount the product, but
Mhm.
discount is different. That's different than a promotion that can come off as a positive and an exciting opportunity, right, for
Mhm.
purchase. And
Yeah.
so there's various promotional events.
Mhm.
Prime Day happens to fall what we would have considered in summer seasonal
Yeah. Yeah.
at
That's true.
really kind of the end of the season.
Mhm.
And so, Prime Day is a perfect example of where, have this opportunity that, okay, you're sitting on some large quantities, is, great potential to get eyes on that product and move it in a quicker time frame.
I see. I see. And have you noticed any trend or like differences in consumer behavior on the e-commerce platform, especially that unique to seasonal product?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit, for sure, about the season being extended. So,
Hmm.
the more likelihood that somebody would look at something earlier, again, with summer seasonal products, they might look at it before spring, even in the wintertime. There's also, I would say, in terms of behavior, an expectation that
Mm.
accessories are carried year round.
Yeah.
In the past, that would have been something where, okay, they understand when they go to a Walmart in November, December, well, they're not going to have a filter pump for a above ground pool at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They call the company would then sell it to them or make arrangements. But now there's this expectation that, well, those products should always be available on Amazon,
On Amazon, that's true. That's true. That's
right?
true. You can find like Christmas ornament
Yeah,
anytime you want. That's
yeah, in
not
July,
on
right?
Christmas. In July, yes, if you
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to. Yeah.
So I think that's, like I said, become a consumer expectation now.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
and
Okay.
likewise, I would even say, some of, like, in the summer inflatables, things like that, again, you would not have been able to find in the wintertime. when you're going on vacation to Florida or you're going on vacation to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And now there's this expectation, oh, I can just go on Amazon and I'll, be able to
That's
find
true.
that.
Yeah. Well, that expectation kind of explains why the selling season is longer too, because people are looking for those items specifically online because they
For
know
sure.
they couldn't find it in the retail store. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and I think as far as of course you have worked in so many different brands, and I think the current company you work for is a little bit different than toys. I don't know if you want to also elaborate a little bit about your current experience working for the current company that's a little bit different than the toy category. So
Yeah, kind of new for me is I've switched over on more of the agency side. Again,
mhm,
with more recent years, my experience with Amazon has proven to be valuable.
mhm,
Learning not only the vendor central side, but the seller central, and understanding, the pros and cons to those two different channels, if you will.
mhm,
And now what I've come to find is, there's a lot of brands out there who I don't want to say struggle, but they have some
mhm.
difficulty in figuring out how to manage their Amazon business,
Yeah.
trying to figure out the right strategy to maximize their revenues, but at the same time protect
Mhm,
their margin, their profitability. And
mhm,
so, I've come to learn a lot about hybrid models where
mhm,
brands can sell both directly to Amazon and through Amazon. Some advantages in that for those companies, and so I work with them to help to establish that.
Yeah, I actually talked to a few brands that's also doing a hybrid. I think it would make sense if your catalog is big enough. But I think for
Sure.
some of the smaller brand that doesn't have like hundreds of product, it might be better just to choose one instead of trying
Yeah.
to do both. You'll be
And,
spreading yourself too thin if you only have like five product and try to do both. So
and you hit the nail on the head. It's it's not for everybody.
mhm,
There are some companies that I talk to and say, it makes 100% sense for you to work directly with Amazon, sell as a 1P vendor. And there's others that I say it makes no sense for you to sell as a 1P vendor. You should
yeah.
strictly sell as a 3P seller.
Yeah, I
So
think that was a very good point based on your experience because my experience for the past 8 years has been working most 90% in 3P environment. I haven't been working with a lot of vendor central account
sure.
in my experience. Can you talk a little bit about like what kind of brand will be best fit for the vendor central? And maybe we can also talk for the listener that might not understand the differences because it's like an inside terminology, almost 1P
Yeah,
versus 3P. Can you also explain the differences for the
sure.
listener as well?
Sure, I'll start there. So, again, there's vendor central, which is a 1P relationship in which, you're selling to the retailer in a wholesale, traditional wholesale type relationship, and then they are reselling the product. The 3P seller or seller central is where you are selling directly, utilizing Amazon's platform to do so. So basically, using their site as your storefront.
Mhm,
Um, and those companies where it may not make sense for them to sell to Amazon directly, may be those companies that are very uh, interested in controlling again their messaging, making
mhm,
sure that they are. You certainly, you cannot control price, but you can abide by your price policies. Make
mhm,
sure that you're being committed to your price policies. And so, in a lot of cases, it makes sense to sell on the seller central side. Those companies where it may make sense to sell through Amazon or to Amazon, I should say, directly, is those that perhaps they're import companies, perhaps that they they don't have the infrastructure to sell directly.
mhm.
They
Yeah,
may
yeah,
not have the knowledge in how to sell directly.
true.
Um,
Mhm,
Amazon's done everything they can to make that an easier process with FBA. FBA
mhm,
is where you're selling, the product directly. However, you're
Mhm.
utilizing Amazon for the fulfillment and shipping,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
basically your warehousing, fulfillment and
Mhm.
shipping. And so they've made that easier, but there are
Yeah.
still those companies that are set up to sell to resellers.
Yeah,
And
and I think one more thing I want to share with our audience is when it comes to Amazon, you really have four different very important, very distinct skill set that you need to have within your team, or you need to hire someone to have those four skill set: design, catalog management, SEO, and then advertising, which is PPC. So if you don't know how to do all those for either in-house or partner with someone, you will struggle a lot when you try to do Seller Central, because it's a lot of work to make it correctly. But that's advantage and disadvantage. I guess it's more work, more control. But if you know what you're doing, you will also make a lot more money because you have a higher margin. Now you're not selling it to Amazon, you're selling direct to consumer, so your margin could be higher. But when it comes to vendor central, at least based on my understanding, is they will do a lot of the initial work, but their work usually is not better than what you could be doing yourself. And because Amazon is so big, they will do what I call minimal viable product for your product. They just try to like throw the spaghetti on the wall, and hopefully you will sell on Amazon by doing the minimum. So they won't be spending a lot of time trying to optimize. They won't be doing any kind of A/B testing for your listing. And oftentimes, when I have people that complain to me when they try to sell on Vendor Central, is that they also lose control of some of the pricing because Amazon also control the pricing on that. Is that pretty true based on your experience as well?
I think a lot of what you said is true. I think that, again, I think there are those brands where it does make sense for them to
Mhm.
sell as a 1P.
Yeah.
And again, there's a number of reasons for that, and it may simply boil down to how they like to be paid. The nice
True.
thing
Yeah.
about when you sell to vendor is you get that one, big check on whatever frequency, that
Hmm.
based on the demand of your product. But
Yeah.
it's a different situation when you're selling directly
Expectation.
to the consumer. So
For
D2C.
sure. For sure. For sure. So, well, thank you so much for being on the show today. And I think we talk a lot about all different aspects from seasonal product to
Yes.
Amazon to all the other different challenges that you have at over the years. One of the last question I like to ask all of our guests on the show is if you had to share just one piece of advice with someone that's getting started in the toy industry, what would that be?
Yeah, I don't think the toy industry is unique in the sense of I think it no matter what it is, you have to have the right product, the right price, uh,
Hmm.
the right offering. And
Hmm.
now, I think what's different again, as we discussed, is if I was starting a business and I was going to market, I
Yeah.
would start with Amazon.
Hmm.
Um, I'm very much a believer in the pull strategy, and I think creating that pull, that
Hmm.
demand, is easier today than it was again 20 years ago. And I
Hmm.
think the opportunity to do that through Amazon is there.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, if your product is the right product and the right price, obviously. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
But that's a very good point, and yeah, that's not just unique in toy space, but in other categories across
Sure.
the spectrum as well. So, for our listener, where can they find you if they want to, to follow you on social media or online?
Yeah. Well, of course, I'm on LinkedIn, Kyle Mundy,
Hmm.
easily searched, and can also find me, email me directly at Kyle D is in David Mundy at gmail.com.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And for our listeners, thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Toy Business Unboxed podcast. We hope you have enjoyed the conversation and find it insightful and inspiring. If you like what you have heard, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you'll never miss an episode. We really appreciate your support and would love it if you can leave us a review and share the podcast with your friend and colleague. For more resources, tip, and latest update within the toy industry, visit our website at toy-launch.com. Join the conversation and connect with us on social media using hashtag Toy Business Unboxed. We'd love to hear your feedback and suggestion for future episodes. Until next time, keep innovating, keep creating, keep bringing joys to toys. This is Jason Shea signing off from Toy Business Unboxed podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much.